all present. And anyone wishing to speak to any of the applications, please indicate so you can have that opportunity. The first on the agenda this morning is John and Elizabeth D. Wright. Is someone here representing them? Come forward, please. State your name for the record.
Jeff Watkins, contractor and the agent.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, no, I got to read something first. Excuse me. Been a long week. John and Elizabeth D. Wright and care Jeffrey Watkins is requesting permission to install 460 linear feet of rock revetment, 240 linear feet of rock breakwater, 60 linear feet of rock spur, and 750 cubic yards of beach sand nourishment along the shoreline of the Rappahannock River, located off Virginia State Highway 695, Windmill Point Road, on Mosquito Point Road, tax map number 34-321, the MRC number 2022-1839. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, and appreciate you meeting me the day before yesterday, and hopefully we addressed any issues or questions that you have. I don't think there are any issues, but I'm here to answer any questions. Very much like the 6 or 7 others we've done along this stretch over the last 20 years.
Anyone on the board have questions to ask Mr. Watkins?
I have no questions.
Any questions?
No.
Olivia?
I do have some pictures of the site up. These are
I'm
existing.
sorry, I can't hear.
I do have some pictures of the site up. These are existing conditions. If you look at your screen, you can see the slope there, and then this is from above in the RPA area. This is a project that Mr. Watkins worked on and designed that was successful. It's one of the ones you mentioned a few doors down, and it shows the type of stabilization that you would see with the proposed project. And we have no further comments.
Very much.
Bill, do you have any?
No, ma'am.
Jay?
I guess I'm on. The only comment I would have is this obviously requires a permit from VMRC as well for the portion that's channelward of low water. But Olivia and I met with Jeff on site and went to a couple of the other projects that were done similarly to see, what could be the anticipated result. And that's really all I have. I do note that Olivia had asked for some benchmarks, and it looks like those have been provided right there. So as per your memorandum that requires benchmarks and staking, this is a tricky one because it's going to look a whole lot different when it's done. But, for consistency, it's good to have those benchmarks for compliance.
Madam Chairman, the benchmarks are off the house, so
Okay.
they don't have any plans on moving that anytime soon.
Hope not, huh? Is there anyone else that wishes to?
There was no complaints from either of the neighbors, so as far as the excavation.
And I'm not sure if there are any of them here today or not.
Okay.
Or is anyone in the audience would like to speak to this application? If not,
Anybody online?
anyone online? No. Okay. If there's no more questions and there's no one online that would wish to speak, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I move that the project be approved as it's presented.
Approved as presented. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Okay, thank you. The next on the agenda is Albert, how do you pronounce it?
Convica.
Kovica?
Convica.
Convica. Okay, and Mr. McKinney is here to represent that. State your name for the record.
Roger McKinley, 691 Mill Point Drive, Eastville, Virginia.
Okay. Albert Convicker, care of Roger McKinley, is requesting permission to install 80 linear feet of riprap revetment against an existing bulkhead with two 10-foot return walls, one against existing bulkhead and one through non-vegetated wetland along the shoreline of Carter's Creek, located off Virginia State Highway 672, Virginia Road, on York Road, tax map number 33-225B, BMRC number 22-1572. Go ahead, Mr.
Yes, ma'am. This originally was a revetment up against an existing bulkhead. And then the homeowner and the contractor decided to add that little portion that's underneath that piece of decking, which brought it into an intertidal area, which we had to make a revised drawing, and so that's why we're here for that small section. The rest of it, mean low and mean high, were up against the existing bulkhead. There would have been no jurisdictional area for the board, but since they did the addition of that little piece under the dock, then we had to revise the application.
Is that all, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone on the board have any concerns on this?
No concern?
Olivia?
We have no comments.
Bill?
No, ma'am.
Jay?
Roger summed it up pretty well. Again, the initial part was just gonna be on the front edge of that bulkhead, which is all subtitle, well, up against the front edge. But when they decided to wrap it around where it comes ashore on that return, I notified Roger that now it will require wetland impacts, which is part of the reason, we received this back in July, and unfortunately, with the modifications and every other thing, it's been slow to get to the agenda, but we have to issue a permit for the portion channel of low tide, and we always wait on you guys before we take an action.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this? Right, Glenn, anyone on? Okay. Since there's no further questions and no one on Zoom that wishes to speak, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Yeah, I'll move to approve the project as submitted.
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, fine.
Thank you all very much.
Roger, I'd also like you to commend the landowner about the great job they're doing on the shoreline area above there to maintain really do a good job.
That's really awesome. Did you all go down the path, or did you go behind the pool and
We
go
went
through the
down the
back
path,
porch?
went out on the dock, but that's a great job, I should say, managing those native plants so they can still maintain their view, but also the habitat there. And I would like the staff to include that commendation in their letter of permit, thanking them for that.
He gives all the credit to his wife.
Smart man.
Next on the agenda is Peter Sherman. Is someone here representing him?
Yes, Joseph Scott, P.O. Box 315, Kilmarnock, Virginia 22482.
Okay. Peter Sherman, care of Joseph Scott, is requesting permission to install 65 linear feet of riprap revetment along the shoreline of the western branch of the Currituck River, located off Virginia State Highway 1070 Currituck Drive on Bayview Drive, tax map number 20D-5-5118, BMRC number 22-2193. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, so this particular project is similar to the one that you guys approved a couple doors down. Same contractors doing the work. And it's pretty much, that whole stretch of that side of Caratone by the Bay as a subdivision is very uniform. It is really tall banks, it's got trees and vegetation on it, and in this particular one, the trees and stuff are starting to slump, fall down the hill, trees in the water sort of thing. So we're gonna try to put some riprap at the base of that to provide some stabilization and leave the rest of the bank as it is. Most of the work will either be done by hand or by barge. And it'll look, if you look, not the next door neighbor, but the next door neighbor to the right of that picture there, it'll look just like that one when it's done. So, not a whole lot of options here with the tall bank and trying to stabilize it, so. Well, without completely overhauling the bank, so. I guess if you have any questions.
Anyone on the board have any concerns?
No questions.
Olivia?
I have no comments.
Bill?
comments, ma'am.
Okay, Jay?
All the work's landward of mean low water, therefore VMRC has no jurisdiction, no permit needed from us. And I just, if you don't mind, Madam Chairman, to make the record complete on all of these, you know, making sure we open the public comment, but, and Joey alluded to it on this one, the living shoreline thing is still, you know, was a living shoreline considered? And if not, if you didn't come up with a living shoreline, why not? Clearly, this is not a candidate. The one before wasn't a candidate. Actually, Jeff's is a living shoreline, breakwaters and sand and beach nourishment and so forth. So again, just to keep the record complete, to make sure that we've considered the living shoreline alternative first and foremost.
That's a good point. I appreciate, this is one of the most comprehensive, science-based explanations why a living shoreline won't work, and I appreciate, Joey, that level of detail, and that's something that we always look at as far as options.
Yeah, because say it's mentioned on number 10 on page 8.
Yep.
At least that's my reasoning. I'm not a scientist or a lawyer or an engineer, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night.
Well, it's fact-based, not opinion-based.
Right. The facts that are available, at least as the site is, so.
Thank you.
And again, just to follow up on that, knowing that, yes, that's in the application, and the application is part of the record, just for the benefit of the public hearing, making sure that that's mentioned out there. The more we can mention it, the more we can drive it home.
That's why we're number 2 in the state, buddy.
We try harder. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this? Is there anyone on? If there's no more questions and everyone is okay, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll move to approve as submitted.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Signify by- Okay, 5-0. Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is James and Lynn Henley. Someone here representing them?
Yes, Joseph Scott, P.O. Box 315, Kilmarnock, Virginia, 22482.
Okay. James and Lynn Henley and Care Joseph Scott is requesting permission to install 120 linear feet of riprap revetment, a 20-foot stone spur, and a low-profile timber groin, 40 feet, channel width of mean high water along the shoreline of the Currituck River, located off Virginia State Highway 0222 Williams Road on Indian Town Road, tax map number 26-128C, BMRC number 22-1819. Go ahead.
Yes, so this project will actually be similar to the one that you guys proposed to the south of it, Mr. Kohler. This neighbor actually spoke to me when we were talking about doing Mr. Kohler's job about 3 years ago. They were having a little bit of beach erosion at the time and some erosion against the base of that bank. But at that particular time, it didn't really warrant anything huge. They really were trying to focus on maintaining the beach. Spoke to them pretty extensively about a breakwater system here, but the two biggest drawbacks of that, A, is money, because it's a lot more stone, and B, there is SAB offshore here. So when they called me back after, let's see, this past winter, when that area kind of got pounded on a pretty regular basis from the winds, the base of that bank is all washing out. They actually lost one of those pine trees, and there's 2 other pine trees right there on the shore as well that, have exposed roots. So essentially, this is kind of in 3 parts, but it's all one application. They're gonna try to go in with the groin, just like the neighbor, and hopefully fill it with sand, and that'll be enough. But I told them, I encouraged them to also, and we did this when we did Mr. Kohler's project, to also apply for a revetment against the base of the bank in the event that the sand doesn't stay there, because the sand in this spot kind of comes and goes. This is right where you have, to the south of this, you have lots of groins. And to the north, you have lots of nice beach, but no groins necessary just because of the way that the sand is flowing off of there. So the riprap would be there if, if the groin doesn't do what it needs to do. And then, of course, the spur to try to hold that beach there right where the dock is. That beach was significantly larger 3 years ago, like much, much larger, so it's lost a lot of sand, and I really think that they'll probably just do the whole project together, just because that's the way it's gonna work. But I did give him that option, because, if you just wanna do the groin, or if you just wanna do the riprap, we'll draw it up this way, because all of it will function, as it needs to. They definitely wanna maintain the beach. We got our little note. On page 8, under number 10, this isn't a living shoreline, but they are creating non-vegetated wetland habitat. So, and again, tall bank options are limited, can't go very far offshore, because then I'm getting yelled at for SAB, so this is what I came up with. You guys have any questions?
Anyone on the board?
Yeah, just a couple questions. I was really concerned. We went down on the dock, and the first reaction was, where's the resource concern? And a couple of these pictures that I took after walking down to the pine trees close to the neighbor and took these pictures, you could see where large volumes of sand have been stripped off this, right there at that tree. I took both of these shots, and starting to undercut that bank. So I see the resource concern, and I also see the issue with the SAV constricting what you might do offshore, Joey. It looks like that, according to your drawing, the SAV line's just about the existing groins.
Just about. That's under scrutiny right now with the Corps of Engineers, but I think that groin can be built without going into the SAB, but they're making that determination.
We had trouble even seeing any SAV the day we were out there on Tuesday. So I first said, why aren't we using some breakwaters here? But I also know what your constrictions are there.
Yeah, the cost difference was astronomical. So just based on the size that they would need, and the fight that would ensue with the SAB. So, and the pine trees, those pines right there, and that's the reason why we didn't move forward 2-3 years ago. I mean, none of that was exposed. That was all built up, thick sand there, and it's just gone. But the last 2 falls, we've had pretty regular high tides for a sustained amount of time, a lot of wind throughout the winter. So, I guess that probably contributed to it.
No further comments.
Anyone else? Olivia?
I just note the slide in front of you with the 2006 historical aerial, courtesy of VIMS, compared to their 2022 aerial. You can see the beach that he was talking about, and got some erosion that's occurred also with these pictures that Bruce took of the roots, you can see the resource concern. And I feel like Joey adequately addressed the living shoreline statement.
Bill?
No comment, ma'am.
Jay?
I concur with what everybody's been saying. Again, I'm a broken record with the living shoreline stuff. The law states you should consider a living shoreline and do a living shoreline where appropriate Where not appropriate, you should try to incorporate components of a living shoreline, which is done here. And getting back to the comment about SAV, Olivia, if you go back to that plan view drawing, you know, that's, I'm assuming Joey took that from the data layer that we use. It's the 5-year composite from VIMS, which basically says at any time during those most recent 5 years where there is data, if there is SAV shown, it's assumed to be there, it's mapped. In cases where, and the Corps may end up doing this, if there's going to be a conflict where a structure is going to be into what has been a mapped layer, then we go out and ground truth it and see if in fact it's there. We, VMRC, is of the opinion that while SAV is a very valuable resource, if you're doing a properly designed shoreline stabilization project that keeps the upland from eroding and filling in the SAV, or building a living shoreline to stabilize that upland from filling in the SAV, then it's kind of a win-win all the way around. It's, you know, we're careful not to say, SAV is not like wetland, where there's the wetland, no net loss. The SAV, just because it's so ephemeral, comes and goes, may be there, may not be there. We have to be a little bit more flexible in how we address any of the projects that may impact it. With that said, the beach nourishment channel word of low water and the groin and the spur are the components of this project that need VMRC approval, and we're still reviewing our part of it.
Let me also, Joey, a follow-up question, Joey. So they're going to do this in a phased approach. They're going to try the groin and the beach nourishment and see how that works?
So that may happen. It's kind of presented to them from me in that manner, like if you want to phase this, you don't have to do all of this at one time. But if I were gonna do anything, I'd put the groin in and try to build the sand. Obviously, that's gonna be the most cost-efficient way to do it. But Lee did the same thing, and the groin collected sand, but then there's so much activity up against that bank that he had to end up coming in and putting in his riprap that was originally applied for. You know, so they're trying not to harden the shoreline, but Mother Nature is having her way there, so. And it's a transitionary point. I mean, you're going from these tall banks into banks that are a little bit more laid down further north of there, and you've got the offshore sand, and that's, you know, with the spur, he's probably gonna have to install the spur at some point too if he doesn't do that immediately, or otherwise you're gonna lose the actual remains of the living shoreline that's there now, so. So yeah, the goal is for them to have that option, but the permit I thought should happen all at once, because with Lee's, we're incredibly fortunate that when his got ransacked during all of this, a permit was in place and he just had a guy come down there and go ahead and put the rock in, and we didn't have to go through, you know, 6 months of permitting and
Could you
reviewing.
go back to that historical area? I mean, that's a lot of loss. Looks like the probability of all that sand covering up the SAV beds was pretty high. Where'd it go, you know?
I have no clue where that sand went. I'm thinking that a lot of it shifted north, because the beaches further north of there are nice and,
Building.
yeah, so, but I don't know. Predicting, I get asked all the time, like, what's sand gonna do? Like, if I knew what sand was gonna do, I would be in Vegas like every day. You know, I mean, I have no clue what it's gonna do. But, you know, looking at it, it looks like it shifted, and that would make sense. We got a lot of southwest this past winter, which would be coming from this angle on that picture there and blowing north, so. Anyway.
Anyone in the audience? There's no further questions, and we don't have anyone on Zoom, I assume, so I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I'll move to approve the project.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify it. I'll look it up, 5-0. The next on the agenda is Ronald and Ann Scott. Is someone here representing them?
Yes, Joseph Scott, P.O. Box 315, Kilmarnock, Virginia, 22482. I'm of no relation to the applicant.
Randall and Ann Scott and Care Joseph Scott request permission to install 95 linear feet of riprap revetment channeled of an existing failing timber bulkhead along the shoreline of the Rappahannock River, located off Virginia State Highway 0627, Tunin Ferry Road on Chilton Lane, tax map number 31B-1-5, VMRC number 22-2094. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, this is basically a maintenance job. There is some riprap existing in front of that bulkhead, but it needs to be obviously repaired and replaced with larger armor stone that's going to push it a little teeny bit further out, so that's why we're getting a permit for it. All that stuff, some of that might actually be hauled away. The rest of it will be used as core. Filter cloth will be put in up against the bank, and then they're going to round it over, up to the top. They'll probably cut the top part of the bulkhead off and kind of make it run right into the top there. So this is another place on the Rappahannock, southwest, just kind of got beat up in the last couple of years. So living shoreline here would entail pulling all that out, grading that yard, building offshore breakwater on a lot that's only 95 feet wide that has hardened shorelines to the right and to the left. I mean, it's just one of those things that I don't know that it can be as effective on such a small stretch of shore owned by these folks. At least that's my opinion. So.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
Nope.
Libby?
We have no comments.
Phil? Jay?
All of this project is landward of the mean low water line, therefore doesn't require any permit from VMRC.
Anyone in the audience? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the project be approved as it's presented.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify. Raise your, okay, thank you.
And I want to thank you, Joey, for another comprehensive and thorough explanation on living shoreline statement on page 8.
Yes, by all means. Oh, there he is. He disappeared. Okay. The next on the agenda is Lancaster County Board of Supervisors. VMRC number 2022-2229. Is someone here representing them?
Good morning, Craig Palabinski with Bayshore Design LLC, 9 Steamboat Landing, Kinsale, Virginia.
I'd like to
22488.
read the ad, please. Lancaster County Board of Supervisors, etc., in care of Craig Palubansky, request permission to install 5 armor stone breakwaters, 180 feet, 240 feet, 220 feet, 90 feet, and 110 feet, 2 armor stone spurs, 60 and 50, and 18,000 cubic yards of beach nourishment with 42,000 square feet of beach and dune vegetation, planks along the shoreline of the Rappahannock River, located off Virginia State Highway 695, Windmill Point Road, at the end of Windmill Point Road, tax map number 41-4-0, 40D, 1, 2, and 40, 39. VMRC 22, 2229. Go ahead.
Okay, what we're proposing here is stabilize over 1,300 feet of eroding shoreline. We had made an application, excuse me, back in 2012 for the marina portion stabilization of this project. which is very similar to what we're proposing today in offshore breakwaters, beach nourishment, vegetative plantings. On the first page of the drawing set that was submitted with the joint permit application, I have the existing conditions plan, and this reflects the current shoreline conditions and the baseline back to 2012. The new low water line has eroded back anywhere from maybe 15 feet on the very east end, adjacent to the jetty to the marina inlet channel, and up to 110 feet over on the west end of the project at the county landing. So this is obviously it's active detrimental erosion going on here, no question about that. So, so I just wanted to show the difference of just what's occurred at this site just in the last 10 years. The shoreline is just covered with, you have old foundations out there. You have 4 stone groins which are completely flanked and no longer connected to the back shore. So what we're proposing is basically 5 armor stone breakwaters to protect the 1,300 feet of shoreline. Then on the 2 ends, on the east end, we're going to have a 60-foot spur tie into that armor stone jetty, and then on the terminal groin to the very northwest corner on the landing property, we're going to have a spur. Basically, this project does consist of 3 property owners: Windmill Point Marina, County of Lancaster, and also the Landing Condo Owners Association. You know, again, it's over 1,300 feet of shoreline stabilization. And included with the breakwaters, again, is 18,000 cubic yards of sand, basically 122,000 square feet of area, which is just slightly less than 3 acres, will be created as far as sand beach is concerned. 1/3 of that is proposed to be vegetated. So almost an acre of the back shore of this shoreline will be planted with beach and wetlands vegetation. The concrete that's there now for the foundations, it's got some rebar in it. Right now, it's anticipated that it's going to be too cost prohibitive to try to clean that out and use clean material for core stone. So more than likely that will be hauled off. The groins themselves that are out there are not doing any good as far as stabilizing that shoreline. That material can be reused as core stone base in the proposed breakwater structures. You know, as far as the shoreline stabilization aspect goes, I mean, I think this speaks for itself. It's gonna work. It's gonna obviously stop down the sedimentation going into the Rappahannock River and help preserve that shoreline. Provide a recreational beach for residents of Lancaster County and people coming to visit Lancaster County. So I think it's a very good project. And also, we are creating, again, like I said, close to 3 acres of sand beach, and 1/3 of that's going to be a vegetative wetland and beach area. We'll also provide more buffer, filter runoff, you know, that comes off the marina property. There's a lot of impervious surface on that upland there when you can count for the building, the tiki bar, the pool, and all the gravel area. There's not much separation from all that upland and the Rappahannock River right now. There's some places only 20, 25 feet of separation. So when you add almost 3 acres of natural sand beach and vegetative area, that's going to filter a lot of the pollutants that come off of that impervious surface of the Windmill Point Marine and Resort, which in turn will improve water quality, you know, in the Rappahannock River. That's pretty much all I have to add. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, it's open to the board. Does the board have,
I just want to be clear, the concrete structures that are on there, is that on the Windmill Point property, or is that,
It's all on the marina property. You mean the concrete?
yeah, there's concrete structures there,
Yeah, it's all on the marina property.
and how do we plan to get rid of those? How do we plan to get rid of those?
I'll leave it up to the contractor. I have a plan as far as how they're going to be removed or where it's going to be disposed.
But there is some concrete structures there, correct?
You mean the foundations?
Yeah, the foundation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that would be removed.
okay.
But where it's going to go, I don't have the answer to that question, or how it's going to be removed. I mean, but this is anticipated, this is going to be done by land, not by barge.
Okay.
It's going to be land access.
Cecil, we, in a couple site meetings we've had with Mr. Woodward and the Corps of Engineers, we had talked about, could we take that concrete bust it up, use it as core material under the granite offshore breakwaters, and the core is undecided because it has rebars, wire mesh, steel, whether or not they would allow that or not.
Well, that would have been my question, what are you gonna do with the rebar?
Then if it cannot be used, it'll have to be disposed of properly, landfill, hauled off.
So I understand it's to be free of rebar, so just to try to go in there and cut that up and just sift through all that, it may be too cost prohibitive to do it.
And I have some questions. You done?
No.
I want to acknowledge the fact that there's been 21 public comments filed, written comments filed on the VMRC website, and so, Craig, we have one in opposition to this project, and I'll get to that in a second, but my questions to you, are any structures or work scheduled to be on any public or private oyster lease?
No, sir.
What do you calculate as the, over the years, what do you calculate as the estimated average annual sediment loss from this 1,300 feet? How many tons have moved out of there?
I could calculate in yards, if you just give me a second.
Well, you can think about it.
I'll say more than 18,000. I'll say more than what we're proposing to put in.
More than 18,000.
Yeah, I would say more than what we're proposing for beach nourishment.
And have you done any calculations on what the average annual nutrient discharge is from that kind of sediment? I know the state's very concerned about nutrient loading to the Chesapeake Bay, and certainly there'd have to be lots of nutrients entering the water column.
That's why I can answer that, and I know enough to be dangerous about doing BAIC site plans. I think your intended goal is to have 16%, not to exceed 16% impervious cover. And if you just account for the Marina Peninsula there, you're probably close to 40%. So that's now. So to try to mitigate to get down to 16% would be a lot of mitigation as far as infiltration trenches. So the fact that we're proposing to add almost 3 acres of buffer between the Marina and the Rappahannock River is going to reduce that impervious surface percentage down significantly.
Okay?
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it
That's what I
did.
can.
Are there any threatened endangered species habitat present on any of this 1,300 feet? And will,
My answer to that would be no, but of course, the Corps, I mean, Fish and Wildlife would say that this is tiger beetle area, but I don't see it being not much area from mean high water back to a beach. It's pretty much rubble, and so I wouldn't consider it.
after,
prime tiger beetle habitat.
should the project be approved and authorized and implemented, would this plantings of the reinstatement of the dunes and the shoreline area provide habitat for threatened
That
endangered
would
species?
provide a tremendous amount of habitat. Probably an acre and a half of habitat.
The protest filed on October the 5th of this year to VMRC, you responded to that protest on October the 10th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you had tried to address the concerns of Mr. Rose, Mr. and Mrs. Rose. And have you received you also offered to meet with them personally. Have you done that?
I haven't received any further comment. I submitted a revision on October 10th, trying to answer some of the questions of the protestant. They requested coordinates of the proposed breakwater structures, which I provided. I also showed the boundary of their oyster ground lease and the coordinate points of the turns in that lease relative to the project, as you can see on the overhead there. I spoke with Ms. Lindsay Rose the same day, and I emailed this plan to her with the copy, which I sent to you. And I also put it in the mail to her, but I have not received any comments or correspondence from them since I sent them that.
So your offer here to meet with them on the project has not been responded to?
No, I'd offered for them to come to the site meeting on Tuesday, since it is advertised, it is a public meeting, anybody can attend. And I also invited them to attend here today, that we will be meeting regarding the project.
I would just have one request here for staff, and Crystal particularly, since we do have officially 21 comments, 1 opposed, 20 in favor, that those be appended to the minutes for the record. And I guess my next question to Mr. Woodward is, with a written comment of opposition to VMRC, doesn't appear there's anyone here possibly in opposition. Are the Roses present today? Don't see anybody here. But if this written opposition stays in effect, what does that trigger at the commission?
We would have to hold a commission hearing, a public hearing, in front of the full commission at one of our monthly meetings to let that protestant air their concerns. We can't administratively approve a project if there's a protest.
Okay.
While we're on that subject and with this drawing there, I got a call from, I believe it was Mrs. Rose, it was the wife of, I think, while I was on leave, and, told her that, yeah, the project is going to be considered by the Wetlands Board, it's going to need a VMRC permit. They were duly notified, as was you'll see the pound net fixed fishing device to the right, to the west side of the project. Yeah, that individual's been notified. Is that Summers?
Yeah, Paul Summers.
Paul Summers. I hadn't heard back from him. What I would say, in just looking at Craig's drawing here, if anything, the existing structures that are there, right there at the turning point at the end of the road and elsewhere, you had it a second ago. Go back to what you just had, right there. Where 5 and 6, the groin there that used to be, I guess, underneath the old wharf, ferry wharf, will be gone, or be incorporated into the breakwaters as core material. So that physical encroachment, not into his lease, but adjacent to, will be gone, as will that little spur groin to the far left or east, also incorporated into the breakwaters. So if anything, to me, there will be less of, not even an encroachment into, but a impact near the inboard edge of that lease. Getting to your comment, Bruce, about water quality and stabilizing the shoreline and preventing sedimentation going out into the river, I would think would be beneficial to the leaseholder. I don't have all of the records of what he's done to work this particular lease, but as a leaseholder, he's almost in a bit of a different category of opposition than an adjacent property owner. When an oyster ground leaseholder opposes a project, we say, thank you. Can you provide us with a record of you working that lease? And not just working that lease, but working that lease where the impact to your lease may be. Because fortunately, the oysters are coming back, and I hope this is a productive lease, and I hope he's been working it. But that's, it's not simply enough to have a lease to be anyone can object. But if you just have a lease and you haven't worked that lease, then we look at that objection a little differently than if it's a lease that's been commercially productive, he's been putting down shell, he's been taking off seed, he's been taking off market-sized oysters. I don't know, I haven't looked at all of that. But that's a long-winded response to, we at the commission will be considering Mr. and Mrs. Rose's concerns about the impacts to their lease. And frankly, I haven't even read his opposition yet. I've been playing catch-up since being out of town. But for what it's worth, this is our newfangled portal where people can go online and submit comments and objections or support for projects over and above just sending in a letter to us, which we copy and send out to you guys. Everything is more online, is more readily transparent and available to the public. So That's apparently where his opposition, like I said, I'd gotten a phone call, but I had not yet read their response or their actual protest.
So on the lease that's delineated there on the slide we're looking at, the impact, the two derelict groins are coming out, is that correct?
Yes.
And, Mr. Woodward, is there any VMRC requirement about buffering around existing leases? Activities, piers, dock, whatever, structures?
Well, when there's a physical encroachment onto the lease,
No, I'm not, I'm saying,
no.
okay. Okay.
We take, leaseholders' concerns very seriously. Obviously, they pay the state to use that area of submerged bottom. It's still state bottom, but it's their lease. And since, they have rights of protection of that lease, if they believe there's going to be, if this was a dredging project and it didn't go into the lease, but there's, expected to be resuspension of sediments and things like that, we, a lot of times, will require a turbidity curtain to encapsulate any of that resuspended material such that it doesn't go off-site and onto the lease. In this case, the disturbance is going to be limited to the removal, extraction of the existing groins, and it might kick up a little bit of sand. I believe one of your drawings indicated, Craig, that you were planning on doing a turbidity curtain for the sand placement.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I should be talking to you. I thought one of the drawings did have a turbidity curtain. Were you proposing a turbidity curtain?
Yeah, there's one on this drawing right there.
And
Shown
that's,
around the
that's
perimeter
more
of the breakwater
associated with
structure.
the actual placement of the sand, not and the construction of the breakwaters. But again, it's like a silt fence around a construction site. You do the best you can to contain any mess, but, there might be a little bit of mess, and that's to be expected. This is a highly dynamic area. I mean, chances are, whatever gets kicked up in the water column is gone on the next low tide or, falling tide or rising tide. It's going to go offshore. The material is all sand, which is, I'm sure, what his lease is, all sand. I don't know, he may come back and say he's got pockets of oyster rock or built-up oyster shell that he's concerned about. Again, I haven't read his comments, but rest assured that in addition to you all taking his comments into his concerns into your deliberations, we will as well.
Is sediment and nutrients a good thing for oysters?
Sediment and nutrients is a normal thing.
I mean, excessive sedimentation from a beach.
Generally speaking, no. You're going to smother the animals, and they won't be able to filter, and they could die. Excessive nutrients can cause algal blooms, and the algae dies and creates dead zones of low oxygen areas. But generally speaking, sedimentation is not a good thing on oyster ground.
Thank you. Isn't that,
Libby wants to speak too, so.
she can when I'm done? I thought I had the floor. Do I have the floor?
Yes, you have the floor.
I wish the Roses had been here because I need some, would like to be educated on some of these concerns. Jay, the state owns this land, correct? Commonwealth?
Commonwealth of Virginia owns the land channelward of low water, where low water is today.
And Mr. Rose's comments, he mentions my shoreline 7 times.
That's just the way, we talk about my oyster ground. Well, it's your oyster ground that you lease from the state.
That's an annual, year-to-year lease?
It's a 10-year lease that has to be renewed every 10 years. It's $1.50 an acre per year, and at the end of 10 years, our Shellfish Management Division will look at each lease to see that it's been worked, that it's been either productive or has been active before we grants another 10 years on the lease.
Thank you. Mr. Rose also talks about the tremendous amount of erosion that's occurred on this site over the last few months. He also questions about from Craig about the longitude, latitude, sand size. Talks about negative impacts, but that not articulated. And I appreciate the fact that, Craig, you responded immediately with your email answering his questions. Also, lots of comments on previous interactions with one of the landowners that I find no relevancy to this permit. That's all I have.
Olivia.
Okay.
You wanted to speak.
We're currently up to 24 public comments. There's 23 in favor and 1 in opposition. Would you like those read into the record or just given to the clerk?
I don't think we need to read them as long as they're included. This is public access, right, Jay? Anybody can look at these comments.
I will leave
and-
that up to you, Olivia. If you feel that we should do that, then we can do that.
Okay, as long as it's included in the record, I think we're fine without reading them.
Anyway, just long as we have it on record and it's, you know. But,
Would it not be just appropriate as an addendum to the minutes?
well, we could do that, do you think?
Okay, we can do that. Okay, and I just want to point out on your screen the aerials. This is taken from VIMS mapping, and so the blue line shows where they have the shoreline mapped. You can see from 2006, the various areas, I think you mentioned it was 15 feet all the way up to 110 feet of loss of sand.
10 feet, the worst section near New Bayment.
Okay. So I just want to point out these aerials are a good illustration of that loss. And I have no further comment.
Y'all have any more concerns? Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this?
Good
State
morning,
your
Madam
name
Chair.
for the records, please.
Jason Bellows, 25 Cardinal Lane, Whitestone, Virginia. I'm here on behalf of the applicant and speaking about the comprehensive plan, so I'll be speaking for behalf of the citizens.
And you are one of the board of supervisors?
I am, so I'm here representing the applicant as well as a citizen.
Okay,
I'm also the chairman of the Rappahannock River Basin Commission, whose oversight of water quality is their primary mission. So in this project, I think you can see that we're improving water quality.
well, I appreciate you coming and speaking with us.
No problem, thank you. I'm going to speak from Chapter 5 of the Access of the State Waters of the Comprehensive Plan. Public access and preservation of the shoreline and the working waterfront has been primary goals of the county citizenry as well as the Board of Supervisors. This project will entail both of those. It will preserve the marina and preserve and provide access to the public state waters, as well as protect the asset for the working waterfront. A lot of the oystermen and stuff use this marina, so preserving their shoreline for the future and protecting their access will be beneficial to the oyster community. For the shoreline restoration work that we'll be doing and adding the plantings, we will partner with the Friends of the Rappahannock, just as sort of the Tides Inn did down there on their shoreline restoration. We have good stewardship down here as well, and working with the residents. This is an historic agreement. In the past, there's been a lot of acrimony down here amongst the different parties, but we've been able to bridge all that and bring everybody together. So this is an historic agreement for all these partners to really work together, and we're amicable and open to working and solving solutions with Mr. Rose in any way possible to mitigate what his concerns are, as we've done with all the other applicants with the landing. In terms of the comprehensive plan, if you refer to Chapter 5, Access to State Waters, on pages 5.8 through 5.9, this speaks to basically the need and why public access is needed in the county. Part 2 there, determining additional need for public access, it says access has become very limited for non-waterfront residents and the rest of the general public and visitors. That's not incongruent with our working waterfront, the river realm, and what we're branding the no-boat tax and everything we're working to build this community back. Additionally, it says currently there is no public fishing pier in Lancaster County. This particular application does not address that, but a future application will be coming forth to build a fishing pier down here. All parties have worked to agree on that. We're still working through the final details of that, but that's not in terms of this application, but this project overall will solve that problem that we have here in the comprehensive plan. Also, future opportunities to expand the variety and number of public access sites in Lancaster County is in jeopardy by the expanding use of shoreline by residential purposes, could very well become non-existent in the near future. We all know we've been working at this for 20 years, and the NIMBY sort of thing has been a major obstacle. Again, we've overcome that here with this historic agreement of all parties working together. Finally, reactivation of inactive seafood industry sites ensure that these unique landmarks and county waterfronts remain. As far back as 1989, the Virginia State Outdoor Plan documented the need for expanded access to tidal waters. So the state understands this need. We have the current Board of Supervisors and the comp plan has a major history of working with the working waterfront and making sure they have their needs met. And that industry is a critical economic contributor to our community remains. So I think the record states that we are very pro-Waterman and very pro helping them through this, and we'll do the same with Mr. Rose. Finally, and on page 510, it says in 2002, the Citizens Advisory Group was formed to address the needs of public access to state waters in the county. Their report contains specific recommendations for expansion of public access to state waters while acknowledging the obstacles. So one of the big obstacles they said was price. Prices are not getting any better, so the longer we wait to act on this, the worse that will be. We've overcome that too. We've acquired multiple sites that we'll be developing. So we're on a point of having a major breakthrough of solving all the public access needs that have been critical over the last 20 years. So I ask you all to support this project and trust that the Board of Supervisors in Lancaster County will work with all parties involved in a meaningful and amicable way to benefit all citizens and preserve state waters. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in the audience?
I have a question, and I don't want to beat a dead horse over this structures, but since December the 10th, this board met 2020, we've been trying to get Windmill Point owner to clean up the project and the beach. That hasn't occurred. We turned it over to the circuit court and the county attorney. Each meeting we've had subsequently, we have gotten really no response other than there's no response. And my question is, I guess, now that this project's going forward, which I think is a good project, I don't have a problem with it, it appears that the taxpayers in Lancaster County is paying for the cleanup of Windmill Point property. Just a comment.
That may be, yes, sir, that's basically the case. We will be, but this is an agreement to improve this property. And for that cost, we're going to get additional public access for the citizens on perpetual easement that will be granted to us from the marina. So that's their skin in the game. Everyone in this project has skin in the game, and the skin in the game for Lancaster County is cash. But while doing this, we will solve this environmental problem of the past. No one's made, it takes money to clean up this thing, and if you don't have it, you can't really make someone do it. They had liens against this property in the past. Mr. Anzo's been successful in mitigating some of those. So at the end of the day, I think the cost here will be minimal to the benefits of the citizens of the county. When you spoke earlier too about the concrete that's existing, since
It will not basically be able to be used due to the rebar. Most of the contractors remove this in the area, take it somewhere and crush it up and then recycle it into material that's then resold for driveways or other things like that. So it won't be a material that goes to a landfill. This will be material that will be taken probably somewhere locally and chipped up and then reused for the citizens in the future projects that they may need.
So there is an agreement between Lancaster County and the property owner?
There's a verbal agreement now, and the county attorney is working with Craig on the boundaries of the easement and what that will be. And then once that's finished and submitted, the parties will agree and sign on an agreement for that before any of the work gets done. So we'll have that in place before we expend any money, any taxpayer money at the benefit of the marina. on the
Okay,
solar
that's between
facility.
the county and the lawyer, so,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Thank you.
I just want to point out that the county is pursuing grant funding as well for this project,
I'm
actively
sorry,
pursuing.
Olivia, it's hard to hear you.
I just want to point out that the county is actively pursuing grant funding for this project as well.
Okay, well, you working with them on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Go ahead,
I'm
Don.
Don Gill, County Administrator. I think Supervisor Bellows has expressed the county's position very well. Just want to add a couple of things. It was commented that, the county's going to pay for this cleanup, and there was an existing violation in place. Our plan rectifies that violation, so that violation will be made better with this plan. As Supervisor Bellows stated, the county's going to increase the size of the public beach probably fivefold of what it is right now. The exact surveyed easement area is currently underway. That work is currently being performed. Once that survey is complete, the attorneys will draft the perpetual easement to put that document to record. As far as the cost of this project and potential impacts on taxpayers, which I know you all are, as Olivia said, the county is actively seeking grants for these potential projects. I can tell you that a sister project that we're working on in Carter's Cove, we just received word this week that we received a $150,000 grant for that project. So Olivia just this week, yesterday in fact, submitted a FEMA BRIC grant for this particular project. So the county is actively pursuing all grant opportunities for this project. So the final thing I would like to say is that Lancaster County has 330 miles of shoreline. 97% of that is privately owned. The vast majority, the remaining 3%, is located in Belle Isle State Park at the northern end of the county. So finding public access sites at the eastern end of the county is very difficult. And as Supervisor Bellows stated, supervised boards in the past have worked on this and kind of kicked it down the road. But the board we have in place right now is acting on this. And I'm very, very proud to be a part of this, and I hope that the board supports it. Thank you.
Mr. Gill, just wanted to thank you for you taking your time to come and speak to us.
And before you leave the podium, I have 3 questions for you, Mr. Eel.
Okay.
Should this project be permitted by both VMRC and the Corps of Engineers and all other associated regulatory agencies, this be a county contract for this work?
It will be a county contract for the work, yes.
And will the county then totally administer the contract?
County will administer this contract.
And will the county also supervise during construction, the construction of the project to ensure quality control and that the project is built exactly as plans and specifications?
Yes, we will.
And that, I presume, will be done by a licensed professional engineer?
We will have, yes, third-party engineers as well as staff overseeing this project.
Thank you.
Is any, do you have anything else?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Y'all have any more further questions or anything? And no one in the audience, and Is there anyone on Zoom, Glenn? Do you have anyone?
Online?
Okay. With no further questions, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
I want to make a motion to approve this project.
Motion's made, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Okey-doke. Well, the Wetland Board would like to thank all that came and spoke, and the pros and cons, and this was resolved, and I think we've done a great job. And I'm sure when the project is finished, a lot of the citizens of this county will enjoy it. Well, is there any, I need approval of the minutes.
I wasn't here, so I can't vote.
Okay. Approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve last month's minutes.
The motion's made, all in favor? Okay. Minutes approved, thank you. And as we speak, is no further business?
Excuse me.
Oh, the draft, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bruce.
Yes, for several months now, we've been kicking around replacement policy for this board on requirements to applications that are received by the board to make sure they're complete and in compliance with state regulations, including living shorelines. And so the draft that you all have before you today, and staff has had two, we're close to hopefully doing this. Don, I want to run this by you and the board because we think we also would like to have board concurrence on this, not necessarily approval, but the old policy, old memo, whatever, is 25 years old and is not necessarily consistent with today's times and regulations. So we have that under consideration, and I would like to make a motion that we approve this draft subject to Board of Supervisors concurrence.
And any other comments by the board?
Correct. I'm sure there's some wordsmithing that could improve the document.
Yeah.
Anyone have anything to say?
I would also say that, this would only become in effect, Olivia and Bill, following approval and concurrence by the Board of Supervisors, and only those applications that come in after that, not anything that's in the current pipeline.
Okay, the motion's been made for approval of this. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by, okay, the draft was approved. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Is anything else?
Did we-
Else have any comments?
Is there something that you tagged me on that we might need to take quicker action on that Don wanted to address? No, okay. And what do you anticipate next month? Anything in the hopper workload-wise?
Possibly, not sure yet. I'll be in touch.
I want to thank, Madam Chairman, I want to thank Olivia for the PowerPoint. That is very helpful.
Oh, yeah.
The pictures.
Wonderful.
What's Jay always say about pictures?
Worth 1,000 words.
But
A site visit's worth 1,000 pictures.
well, that's why we go to every site.
And I have to give credit where credit is due. That was our lead engineer in the surveying department for oysters is Ben Stagg. And when he said that, I almost spit my coffee out at a commission meeting, but truer words were never spoken. I mean, it's not to bash VIMS, but the day they stopped going on site to look at projects, your comments are going to be taken, but we
Okay.
were all there and we looked at it, and it's very helpful. And again, I